Hello, this is Barry, and welcome to the Simplicity Zen podcast. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, please consider liking the video and subscribing. YouTube uses these metrics in deciding how widely to distribute the videos, so it would be appreciated and helpful. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you can sign up for the podcast updates at the website at simplicityzen.com. Today, my guest is Teresa Hess. She was a student of the legendary Harada Rōshi at the Sogen-ji Rinzai monastery in Japan, and now raises a family with Corey Hess in Washington State. Thank you for being here with us today, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me, Barry. It's my pleasure.
Just to dive on in, could you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and kind of what your family structure was like?
Oh yeah, growing up? Sure. So I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a Midwestern gal. And it was just my parents and my brother and myself. Pretty, I don't know, average life. Had a little home in the city. Went to public school. Not a big religious influence growing up. Both my parents were raised Catholic, and we hardly ever went to church. I didn't get baptized. They didn't want to choose that for me. They wanted me to be able to grow into that myself, which I appreciated. Even as a kid, I remember thinking that was cool. They were giving me that liberty. Though I do remember, like, at a dinner table conversation as a kid, we went around asking, like, what do you think God looks like? And I remember saying, I think he has a white beard and lives up in the sky. So, and it's strange that I even remember having that conversation, and just that so young, those images just get implanted culturally or whatnot. So that was my idea of God, I guess, as a child.
So with a little life experience, do you think you were right?
No, I was very wrong. I don't think that's what God is at all anymore. I grew up there all through high school. And then when I went away to college, I went first to the East Coast and spent a year at Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York, studying mainly like theater and English. And then I didn't really jive with the East Coast very well, or the New York scene, or that particular school, or whatever it was. And so I chose to transfer my sophomore year. Then I moved out to Washington State to a little college called Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, it's great.
Have you? Cool. Yeah. So
I remember. I think I was in 9th or 10th grade, and my cousin was going there, and I was actually living with my grandma that year. She lived in a ski resort, so I was staying with her so I could ski.
Oh, cool.
And we drove out to visit my cousin, and I remember we went to, it wasn't like a sorority or fraternity, but it was a bunch of students living in a house together.
Okay.
And I remember it was like everybody like sitting in the living room and listening to folk music, and I was thinking I want this experience.
Yes, you were probably in one of the interest houses there. They had well, who knows? Maybe it was just a house with students, but there were these interest houses there where one was for creative arts, and one was like the Spanish house and the French house. I lived in the writing house one year. Those houses owned by the college, but then divided by interest. And we were definitely sitting in the living room, playing guitar and doing poetry readings. And
it really made an impression on me.
That's cool.
I ended up going to a hippie school myself, but we didn't do too much of that.
Okay.
Did you? So, what did you not like about the East Coast? Was it just kind of the aggro New York vibe, or?
I think probably. I mean, I loved being able to go into New York City. That was just wow. I love the energy of that, and the bustling, and the diversity, and the culture, and that was amazing. The school itself was pretty small. It had been an all-girls school up until the 70s or sometime, but it was still about 75% female. And it was, I don't know. I think overall the East Coast vibe, it felt a little sharp for me coming from Minnesota. And there was a lot more drugs there than I was comfortable with, or the feeling of lots of eating disorders and shooting heroin in the bathroom and things like that. For me, I was just I was pretty not straight laced. I don't know, but it it wasn't the right fit for me overall. It wasn't like finding kindred spirits, which was hard. I come from like a really tight group of friends in high school where I did theater and had these amazing, like really close, like soulmate friendships. And then here I just felt totally uprooted and adrift. And yeah. So I was planning to stay and keep going because I wanted to pursue acting. But then I actually, on spring break of my freshman year, I auditioned for a play in Minneapolis and I got into that. So I left Sarah Lawrence like a bit early in the school year. And once I had that perspective and distance, I was like, oh, that felt really unhealthy. I can't go back to that. So that's when I started investigating, you know, places to apply to transfer, and how I ended up at Whitman, which then was how I connected with Zen. So it's always interesting looking back and seeing the choices you make or don't make, what takes you where. And at the time you feel completely lost and at sea, but then looking back, it all lines up, it all works out. You're being taken care of. You know?
Did you continue theater or something similar at Whitman?
I did do some theater at Whitman. I didn't love the theater department there. I thought it was fine, but I really liked one of my English professors. And so I ended up being an English major. And yeah, I was always interested in theater, and the English major kind of lined up because it's still about story and finding these themes and getting inside the minds of people, I guess. What partly interested me about reading and writing, like what makes a person who they are and what makes them tick, which I think is also what drew me to theater. So there was overlap there, but yeah, I didn't end up majoring in theater. I think I also felt like theater, my mom had been an actress before I was born, and I mean, I knew it was very tough to make a living. I mean, not like getting an English major is that much better than having a theater major, but maybe a little more applicable out in the real world. Whereas theater, it's, you know, it's just very hard to make a living. So.
Did you finish your degree there?
Yeah. Yeah, I got my bachelor's there. And then shortly after I went to Sogen-ji, like a week after I graduated or something. Yeah.
So going back to your like childhood and teenage years.
Yeah.
Would you say you were a happy kid? Were you well adjusted? Did you have any like kind of great doubt, so to speak?
I think, yeah. Well, I think as a kid and a teen, I think I was very happy and well adjusted. I mean, I'm sure I have my issues like most people, but overall, I think I was, and I felt good and pretty good in my family life and my school life. I did well in school. Like I mentioned, like my theater community in high school gave me like this real sense of belonging and being appreciated and seen. And so that was pretty smooth. My bumps hit when I left home and then went to college. Both sort of through what I described at Sarah Lawrence and at Whitman too. I started feeling that separation from life a little bit. And I'd say that's more when my great doubt or my existential feelings, questions came in, like what? And as you get older and you realize this little nest of being taken care of and family and school and being, you know, you're just on that conveyor belt and doing what you're told and from one place to the next. And like I said, I could play that system well, but it was like, but what do I really believe? I was starting to have those questions, and what am I gonna do in the world? What am I gonna offer to the world? What's important? What's my relationship with my spirituality? What are my real beliefs about what is life and what's this all for? That started up more in college for me.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of doubt feeling.
Did you have any interaction with Eastern religion or spirituality in high school? Did you read anything? Did you have any touch points there? The Kung Fu TV show, or you know.
Let me think. In high school, not so much. Not so much. It was, like I said, it kind of all started in college for me. I remember like one of my friends at Sarah Lawrence was going into the city to do a meditation group. I couldn't tell you now what kind of group it was, and I remember being curious then about meditation and like sitting in my dorm room and trying to meditate and knowing that meant become one with the universe and don't think. And like sitting down and trying to get into that state of mind. Yeah, and reading, reading Siddhartha. That was big for me. And I remember in the college library that Whitman coming across a book of Rumi poetry on a bookshelf. I don't know.
Rumi's amazing.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Like
so
if you change the wording, like the names and a few of the terms, it could totally be Zen, you know?
Yeah. Completely. Actually, when I first went to Tahoma and met the head monk there, I remember, we spent a few days there meditating, and I was really lit up by it and interested in it right away. I remember asking him when I left, like, how do I keep this going in my daily life? And one of the things he recommended was read Rumi. And I had already found that book at that point. So I was like, okay, cool. Because it felt like those were hitting the same point in me. They were resonating with that, that knowing that's inside each of us, but we can't quite get to on our own.
Did you, sorry, I had my ringer on.
Okay.
Did you, so how were you introduced to Zen? Were you introduced to Buddhism first? Like, did you think like, oh, I'm interested in Buddhism, or were you introduced to Zen, kind of its own entity?
Let's see. No, I don't think so. I remember in college sort of thinking, what do I believe spiritually? I think I checked out a few books of Hinduism, Buddhism, but nothing that struck a deep chord that I remember clearly. I was just sort of interested in learning about world religions. No, so I wasn't seeking out Buddhism or Zen. I just sort of happened upon it. So I was just living my life at school, doing my plays, writing my English papers, having existential questions bubble up inside, walking around campus, wondering, what is this all for? Why do we exist? And then I signed up for a spring break trip my junior year of college that I just knew I didn't want to go home for a full 2 weeks of spring break. So this was a 1 week trip, and it was a group of students coming out here to Whidbey Island, where I live now. And they do volunteer work every spring. They come and do volunteer work here. So one of the days of the trip for the volunteer work, we went to the monastery and we
This is one drop.
This is one drop, Zendo in Freeland. Yeah. And we just made lunch with the monks and did probably a little bit of sitting. And so that's when it kind of like that little spark happened for me, where I felt like there was something going on there that made sense and that I wanted to go into more deeply.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was it the sitting itself, or the vibe in the air, or the demeanor of the students? Like what kind of captured you?
Yeah. All of the above, I think. Yeah. So it was, I guess that's why it made sense. Like the head monk, he was really, what do I want to say? Like he had sort of this incredible depth to him, and this incredible like warmth and open-heartedness. He was really, he still is. He's really good, like with young people. So he could like see each person in a really unique, clear way. That impressed me. And then just being in the Zendo with him and with the group there, it was just him and one other monk at Tahoma at that time. But yeah, and I think then the sitting itself, I felt like I was able to touch something within myself that I knew was important and that I knew I wanted to keep investigating.
Was it like a slight hook at first, or were you just totally enraptured kind of from the beginning?
I think I was pretty enraptured. I mean, at that point we had just, like I said, spent a day there. So we weren't even overnight or sitting a full period of Zazen or anything. But then the next year, when we came back to the island to do the trip again, I volunteered to help lead the trip. And the AmeriCorps team that we usually worked with on the island and would send us like one day to the schools to work, one day to dig trails somewhere, that AmeriCorps was no longer getting funded to be on Whidbey, so we had to make up our own schedule. So we contacted the monastery and said, "Can we stay with you instead?" And do the sitting day in, day out. And that was my senior year. And so then I became really, really excited by it, and doing the morning and evening sit, and even over those few days, like feeling how that had an impact on my state of mind and things like that.
Between the first and second trip, did you do any sitting on your own, or did you start reading Zen books, or is it kind of out of mind?
I did read a little bit of Zen books, and probably tried to sit on my own a little bit. But yeah, it was more my senior year, that second trip, of having that little chunk of time there of several days, that then I started thinking that it was something I wanted to pursue more deeply. And yeah.
If you don't mind answering, did you have any psychedelic experiences as a teenager or in college?
No.
Yeah.
I'm really missing out. So
yeah, and the reason I ask, because a really good percentage of people, kind of got into practice from something they experienced during psychedelics.
Yeah. No, I didn't have that. I don't know. It was very just basic for me. It was just something I was feeling in my body, the breathing, the focus on the belly breathing, and counting the breaths, and then if I leave the cushion, I just could start to feel like life felt a little bit different after doing that. So that was enough for me. Yeah.
Did you so you went to the second time? This was the spring break before your senior graduation, right?
Yes.
So you had a couple more months before you graduated. Did you start sitting on your own right away? Was there a local Zen group you started?
Yes.
With, or?
No, there wasn't I didn't, or at least I didn't try to seek it out, like any Zen group in Walla Walla. There could have been. No, myself and a dear friend who also helped lead that trip with me, we started sitting together in the mornings at school, and I think inviting people to join us. So then we started sitting on our own more. Yeah. Cool. And then the head monk from Tahoma, my good friend Yusan, we invited him out, and he gave like a speech at the college and led a circle that, a sitting session there. I remember in a big dance studio, I remember like hearing him give the long exhalation out, and everyone being really impressed by that. Yeah.
Did you receive that type of instruction to do the like the deep breathing, or?
He must have done that. Yeah. Yes. Just leading us in the meditation at Tahoma, he must have given a little instruction about that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you graduated, and then what did you do?
Yeah, I graduated, and so it must have been after that trip out to would be my senior year. I had been on the track. I had been applying to join the Peace Corps, and plans to do that after graduation. But then after being at Tahoma, I wrestled with it, but I felt like I really wanted to go to Japan
for Zen
instead of the Peace Corps.
Because
to
go to Japan in general.
To Sogen-ji. I wanted to go train at Sogen-ji.
So you were immediately hooked then.
Yeah. Well, I was at this perfect point in my life too, where things are open. I mean, I knew I wanted to do, I guess I wanted to do something like major. Like I wanted to go do the Peace Corps in Africa, or I wanted to experience something really outside of what I'd been experiencing. And then yeah, with Zen, I was just hooked with that. So so I must have started making that plan. So I decided not to do the Peace Corps. And just shortly after I graduated, like I said, like a week after graduating, I went to Sogen-ji for a visit. So Yusan, the head monk at Tahoma, was planning to bring some 8th graders from the Waldorf school on Whidbey Island to Sogen-ji for like their 8th grade trip. I guess the 8th graders at Waldorf at this school anyway, like do a big trip.
But my kids used to do Waldorf. That's a common thing. Not necessarily Japan, but there's always an 8th grade adventure.
8th grade adventure. So, and he had been, I think that Waldorf kids have been coming to Tahoma, to the one drop there, and helping in the garden and things. So he, made connection with them and said, I'm going to take you to Japan for your trip. So since he was taking them, I didn't go over with them. I flew over a few days ahead of time, but I met with them there. And that's when I first met Corey, my husband, because he was also, you know, connected with Yusan and Tahoma at that point, though I had never met him. And he was chaperoning the 8th grade.
Oh, okay, so he was part of the group.
He went over with Yusan and the 8th graders.
And
I remember when I first saw him. Yeah.
Did you guys feel a connection with each other right away, or
no?
Or was he just some guy that was there?
Well, I was kind of hoping that I would be like interested in him, because you know I was always sort of looking around, and I had heard this guy Corey was going to come, who like was really good at basketball, according to Yusan. So I remember when I first saw him, it was like this evening chanting that we do at the entrance of the monastery after zazen every night. You go up and you do this really fast chanting. So I had already been there a couple of days, and he must have just arrived and was sitting there. And I remember just looking over and seeing like this expression on his face, and I just thought, oh no, I'm not interested in him. And I think he has a similar first impression of me, where he thought I was just this loud theater girl who was obnoxious and just, you know, I was probably there in the monastery laughing really loudly and being obnoxious. So we didn't like each other at first, but we quickly became kind of friends, just friendly on that trip. You know.
What was your first impression of Japan when you got there?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, you fly in, you take like the Shinkansen, and then I took a taxi right from the train station to Sogen-ji. So I don't really see Japan. It was just,
so you flew into the town that Sogen-ji is in.
Well, no, I guess I must have flown into Osaka and taken the train, and then gotten a taxi from the train station to the temple gates. And walking in there. So then my first impression was just Sogen-ji. I didn't see any of Japan. So
you went kind of from the plane to 17th century Japan.
Yes, to the 300-year-old temple. So I mean, it was incredible. Just walking in, you feel this incredible energy, and the stone path, and the beautiful plants. You know, how well the gardens are taken care of. It just creates this whole vibe. And it was dark because you always kind of fly in at night. And I remember going to the kitchen, getting a cup of tea. They sent me up to the guest house there, and just, it smells different. It just smelled so different. You're smelling like the incense and the pickles fermenting and whatever you're smelling there. I would love to smell it again. It was just such an amazing,
well, you could just take, aroma. You know, go to sushi restaurant and get the taco, and then get some sandalwood, you know, mix it up.
Rub it on. Yeah.
Wow, maybe we could start a business. So did you meet the Rōshi right away? Was he there when you guys went?
Yeah, he was there. So I must have arrived when everyone was sitting in the zendo, except for the cook, the person who had been Tenzo for the day, was in the kitchen, who's a very dear friend of ours now too. So I remember when I first met him also, and he gave me some tea and got me settled in. And then the Rōshi they must have come up for the chanting, like I said, outside the entrance, and I was told to come back down and be there for that. And I'm sure when that chanting ends, probably Chi-san like quickly introduced me to the Rōshi, and he probably just went, you know.
What was your impression of him?
That was it. Well, I don't know. I'd heard a lot about him from Yusan. It's just, gosh, it's such a foreign experience being there, and it's all kind of moving so quickly. You know, everyone has it down, and you come in like standing out like a sore thumb, trying to get on the momentum of that incredible energy. And the Rōshi's just, he's like this pin in the center of that, right? And it was incredible meeting him, but I didn't really know what to make of him. I wouldn't say like I saw him and I knew he was my teacher for life or anything like that. I was just like amazed and curious, and I just wanted to sit. I was excited to learn from him. So after sitting on my own so much and hearing about Sanzen, I was definitely excited to try Sanzen, though I didn't do that on that trip because I was just a visitor. I didn't get to do Sanzen until I came back in the fall. But yeah, and then I remember like at the end of that little trip there, I think Yusan said, "Oh no, everyone say goodbye to the Rōshi. Like you can give him a hug if you want." So I went up and I tried to give him a hug, but he's just like, like he doesn't really hug. I don't know why Yusan said give him a hug.
So did the 8th grade Waldorf, did they stay there at the temple the whole time, or is that just a stop on a larger?
Yeah, they stayed there for several days, and then we left. I went with the group at that point, and we visited Hiroshima and Kyoto, each for just a couple nights. So
did you get to visit any of the big kind of museum-like temples and places?
Yeah, we did a little sightseeing, all with Yusan being the tour guide. So that was incredible. Yeah, seeing some of the major temples in Kyoto and in Hiroshima, going to the museum and everything there for the nuclear bombing. And so it was a huge learning experience. Yeah.
So when you went to the temple, you already knew you wanted to live there, right? Or were you just going to check it out?
I was going to check it out. I felt like I did want to live there, but I wanted to check it out, and this opportunity came where it was easy to go and check it out. Right. And so then when I left and I was back on Woodby for the summer, I was like sleeping in a tent on a farm where there was this little trail through the woods where I could go sit at Tahoma morning and evening. At that point, women weren't allowed to live at Tahoma. So I was doing that. I was working in a coffee shop, and I was trying to decide, do I want to go? It felt like such a huge leap to go live across the ocean in a temple. But I did want to do it. And I think at first I thought I'll go for 3 months. That felt doable, like buying that kind of plane ticket. So that's what I did originally. I thought I'll go for 3 months. I still hadn't done Sanzen with the Rōshi. Came to Woodby and did an Osashin. And on the 6th day of that, that's when 9/11 happened. But I wasn't, I hadn't been able to sign up for that Osashin. I was like helping cook in the kitchen and things. So, but my plan was to go, and I did go then after the Osashin to Sogen-ji to live for 3 months, I thought at the time.
What did your family think about this? Did they think it was weird or no?
Yeah, I feel like my parents had different reactions. I think my dad was kind of excited because I think at one point he had wanted to go to China and had been starting to teach himself Chinese, and he was interested in Taoism. And he had a couple books on Zen. So I think like after first encountering Zen, those were the first books I pulled off of his bookshelf. And my mom was like more wary because, well, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think it felt a little cultish, perhaps. There's that kind of concern coming from parents, like, where are you going? Who's running this place? What are you doing there? Why? And then I think she would just was concerned because she'd miss me. I'd be so far away. She didn't want me that inaccessible or doing something so completely foreign to her that was just so off the radar. And I mean, at that time, there's email, but you can't email that often from Sogen-ji or call. I mean, keeping in touch would just be much more limited than it is today.
How do you get over there? Is it a tourist visa or like what kind of, like, how do you actually get there?
You show up there and then you get some kind of visa. Maybe there's a religious visa or something you can get once you're there, and the Rōshi signs a paper and you have to go to this office and so I got some kind of visa while I was there.
Okay, so you're back in Japan. You're at the temple. Do you immediately just dive into the schedule? Were they in an ongo when you got there, or the beginning of one?
We don't have ongo. It's like constant ongo. I didn't even know this was ongo until recently. So yeah, with the Rōshi, and because we're all foreigners, it's not easy for us to like go home and take a break and come back or whatnot. Or it's just his way of teaching, I think, that it's just sort of full on all the time. So you're constantly in a kosashin or an osashin, and you have a day off here and there where you get to sleep until 6 a.m. or something. And then you could go to town and run errands or drink coffee and come back in time for the evening chanting. Yeah.
Was it was it hard to mesh into the schedules as far as the sleep schedules and the length of the zazen, or was that a challenge for you, or did you feel like you kind of just?
Well, I'm sure it was challenging, but I don't remember it as being like incredibly awful. So I know, I mean, it's a big change, but I was just, you're so young, you're up for it. I was 21 or 22. I think I buzzed off my hair pretty quickly, and I just wanted to do it. And then, I don't know. I liked the challenge. That was something I was like up for. But I'm sure I was exhausted and all the rest, and having pain in my body, but not as much as some people. Corey will always say that his impression of me is that I had no pain in my body, which isn't entirely true. But I think compared to him, it was like more smooth for me to get.
Did you have any background in yoga or any sort of body work or anything?
No, just tap dancing and High School Musicals, but not like.
There you go.
Yeah, that must have been it.
I mean, some people are just luckily physically. Sitting's always been a nightmare for me. Even 30 years into it, I still have problems.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
So how were you allowed to have sanzen right away?
That's a good question. I think it was pretty soon after I came there. Now that I was committing to live there, I think I got sanzen, within the first week or something of being there. Yeah.
So for someone who's not familiar with life at a Rinzai monastery, can you talk a little, like kind of in a narrative sense, talk a little bit about like what the sanzen experience is like, starting like maybe you're in the zendo.
Right.
Okay.
You're in the zendo and there's going to be sanzen. And so you've lined up your shoes really well. You're sitting up on a tan and your shoes are below you on the floor. And and then they ring a bell and you jump up into your shoes and you run. Not everyone's running, and some people are running really fast, some people are walking, but the idea is that everyone's like so on the edge of breakthrough that they have to just like run to go see the Rōshi and show them their state of mind. So you run up the path and through this little woods, and then the Rōshi, the sanzen room is up in some buildings that are separate from the zendo. So, and then all these cushions are lined up on the floor in the waiting room for sanzen, and you line up on those cushions according to who got there first, who ran in fast enough. And then you wait your turn, and one by one people go up and sit on the floor at a bell. And when you hear the Rōshi ring a bell in the sanzen room, then you in the waiting room, you ring the bell and bow and go in and bow to him and do sanzen. And then when you're done, he rings that bell, which causes the next person in the waiting room to ring. And then you meet that person who's been waiting and you bow to each other. And then you go back to the zendo and they go into sanzen.
Would Chi-san, was she translating, or was it?
She would translate. We had So-san. The first, I think I remember, it's been a long time now. I think it was like the first and last night and the middle night of the Osashin. So certain ones she was there to translate, but the majority of them you don't have translation at Sogen-ji.
How was his English?
What's that?
How was his English?
Not very good, but definitely better than my Japanese. And so much of what's being exchanged in the sanzen room is just not through verbal language. It just his presence and kind of just receiving that and like resonating with it and tuning yourself to it. And then maybe he's, you know, especially for as a beginner, he's demonstrating the breath. And yeah, he has enough English phrases that I'm sure he repeats for many sanzens of just like, not here and in your belly, and, you know, demonstrating just the posture and everything physically. So that's much more what you're going off probably than what he says. Although when there is translation, he says some incredible things, but it feels like he's completely, you just in shock how well he can read your mind or sense where you are and tell you like exactly what you need to hear to expand or deepen in your process. Yeah.
Was so there was it all foreign monks or foreign people there? Did anyone from Japanese Zen ever come by?
There's a few Japanese people, but it's mostly, yeah, Americans, Europeans, people from all over. Yeah.
And was there a good camaraderie, or was there? So I only lived in a monastery for like a year, and I have to say there was a lot of friction. I mean, you know, some people you got incredibly close to, and some people there's incredible friction, and sometimes it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
You know, like what was that similar to your experience, or was it? You guys feel like a band of brothers and sisters on a mission?
I would agree with that. It's a mixture, but we were kind of lucky. So when I came, and then Corey came shortly after me, and right before I got there, there was another young woman, a dear friend of mine. She had just arrived, and then we had a few other people came in. We had like a nice little pack of newbies there, and we all, I think, for the most part, like really supported each other. It was so nice to be going through that with people, and you could, you know, just commiserate together. That felt mostly harmonious and supportive for the most part, for sure. And then there's always a mix. There's people who've been there a long time that are like annoyed with all these new people that don't know what they're doing, things like that. Some gruff personalities, some grinding away of egos, or some inflating egos too. But yeah.
What would you say? There's anything that kind of like veered into kind of hazing? Would you say?
I didn't experience that. I don't think so. Maybe some subtle manipulative mind games happening there of just, you know, kind of trying to
like
get.
But you can find that in the, you know, if you work for IBM, you know.
Anywhere, yes. Yeah. So just your average human messiness. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I know some people, they did a kind of a solo sesshin type of retreat there. Did you ever get to experience that?
I did do that for a week. Doku sesshin.
Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible. That was an amazing part of it. So some people did that for months. And then by the time I went, I think the Rōshi was mostly setting a rule around it, like 1 week at a time, for whatever reason, though maybe he would have made an exception to that. But yeah, so it's this little hermitage up on the mountain. And so I think what I did, I must have done an osashin. And then when that finished, like that evening, I went up to the hermitage and kept going with the doku sesshin right out of that for 7 days. So
is that just morning to night sitting? Do you get up and exercise, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can spend your time up there however you want, which is maybe why the Rōshi wanted to keep it to a week in case some people abuse that. But I mostly just sat. I mostly just sat, or, you know, of course, a little movement or stretching or a little walk in the woods up there. And then you come down morning and evening for sanzen still. And so I'd come down in the morning and do sanzen, and then the cook for that day would leave out a little thermos of rice and soup for me, and I'd take that up, and that would be my meals for the day. And then come back down in the evening for evening sanzen. So that was great. I mean, I would love to do something like that again at some point. It's just incredible to be that solitary and have that completely uninterrupted opportunity to go deep and tune into what's happening there. Yeah.
Would you say it was how would you compare it to a regular sesshin? A little deeper samadhi, maybe, since you're not
Yeah.
interrupted, or
Yeah, for me it was. Yeah. Yeah.
how long? How long would you say you practice until you were kind of able to start, kind of like really going into samadhi and kind of like really starting to dig in? Was that something you got pretty quickly, or did it take months or years, or?
I don't know. I
Uh-huh,
don't know because I think like I don't really think about samadhi
uh-huh,
when I was there. I don't know what I mean by that. I think I'd hear that word samadhi and it sounded like really grand. So I like probably just thought I was never in samadhi.
uh-huh.
But I think I actually was, but I didn't
Yeah.
know it. I wasn't like thinking of it that way. I was just
Mhm,
sitting. And so so I don't really know how to answer that question.
mhm,
Yeah, I mean,
so-
I think with the intensity of being there,
mhm.
and there's so many, I mean, samadhi is what, like how, what's the spectrum of that?
Right. And there's different types.
I'm sure I was in some kind of samadhi probably early on because I loved, because I wanted to go train more. So I probably was feeling something when I first was sitting because
Mhm.
I was like, I want more of that, Um,
So
yeah,
did you ever work on Moo while you were there?
yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what it was like getting assigned that, and what the experience of Moo was like for you?
Oh gosh. Moo. I mean, again, I think that's something that, you hear so much about before you have it. I think
Mhm,
I think I was there like 3 years before I got the Moo koan.
mhm,
And so in that way, it just felt like a continuation of doing Susokan
mhm,
for me, or that's how I was. That's how I was. My angle on it.
mhm,
Um, it just felt like that this this thread and this deepening and trying to like open this vessel more and more. The way I feel of it is like this, the vessel of your body and your being and this perceived self, like opening it, and like letting that
mhm,
channel open more and more and more. So that's what I was doing with my Susokan. And for me, I just felt like, oh, I just have to keep doing that with Moo and like letting them, becoming the Moo in
mhm,
that way. Um, so I just kept doing that, and then but added in at least how it is at Sogen-ji. Most people like them when they go into Sanzen, they yell their Moo,
mhm.
right? So so that's an interesting hurdle to get over because everyone who's waiting there in the Sanzen room, they
Mhm.
can hear your Moo and they can judge your Moo and they can decide where you are in your training.
You walk out and everybody's just like,
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's great for as far as getting rid of self-consciousness.
right.
You have to walk through that gate. So,
Mhm,
and then just that physicality of using the voice, and as far as opening that channel more, I
mhm,
think like being vocal for
mhm,
me was such a necessary and vital part of doing that. Like, I
mhm.
think some people do go through Moo and pass Moo without yelling it. Cannot. I have no idea how they do that. That wasn't my way, but I mean, like I said, I was just kind of following. Well, everybody yells Moo. I've got Moo now. I guess I gotta yell it.
So you would go there and you would yell Moo, and
Yeah,
would he just be like, not deep enough, or or would
yeah,
he demonstrate what he wanted, back
yeah,
to you, or what?
yeah. I mean, there's occasions where he yells it back to you, probably,
Mhm,
but yeah. So in that way, it is similar to the breath. Yeah, it's just like deeper, more, or he's encouraging, like more and more and more, just encouraging you to go
mhm,
further. So, but you never really feel like you're doing it right. But looking back, it's like, oh yeah, you're on the track. It's just like we said, like that track's endless. So he's always going to tell you more. But in your mind, or at least in my mind, as a someone, like I say, you're good in school, you get there and they say, good job, you get an A, like that's never going to happen. So if
right.
I'm not getting that affirmation, does that mean I'm doing everything wrong? So I did a
Mhm,
lot of kind of like self-doubt or self-hatred with that. Like, I'm never going to get in, I can't do it. And
mhm.
which was just another gate to walk through, right? In understanding and embodying it for yourself and not needing like the outside person to give you the thumbs up. But
Right.
yeah.
Would so in in a lot of branches of Zen, they kind of tell you not to talk about where you are in your koan practice because it kind of creates jealousy and makes it a little bit of like an object to attain. But
right.
if they're hearing people yell moo, and you're like, wait a second, that's a checking question,
Yes.
Was that like
oh yeah.
Yeah,
because I think I remember Corey, my husband, and we got there right around the same time, and we were kind of on again, off again in a relationship and friends and competitive and all that. So I think I remember like, he stopped yelling moo. Uh-oh, wait a minute. What does that mean? And I think at that point, like, we weren't on speaking terms, so we definitely weren't talking about it. But that, I mean, that's amazing. That's incredibly motivating, having that sangha, a little healthy competition and camaraderie, and those brothers and sisters going through it together. And yes, yeah. Wait, they're getting the checking questions now, and yeah.
So Corey talks a lot and writes a lot about the energetic aspect of his Zen experience. Did you see it within that framework at all? Was the energetics of it something you conceptualized about or thought about? Was it talked about openly? Could you talk a little bit about the energetic aspect of Rinzai practice and what your relationship was to it?
Yeah, I would say for me also, it's very energetic, or my experience of it's energetic, or my interpretation of my experience, or however you want to say it. But and that was also kind of from the beginning. Like, I remember being at Tahoma, that's back when I was still in college and just starting to sit, and one of the monks there saying something about like feeling the energy go up your spine, and then you tuck your chin a little and it, like, you feel it go up more, and just wanting to play around with that. I think I felt energy right away too. So that's kind of my plug-in point and guidance also, is like feeling into that energy, and like I said, like opening that vessel. Where does it need to open? Where is it not stretching through yet? And how do I embody that more and more? So, and then how is it talked about in the monastery? I think for the most part at Sogen-ji, people use that kind of language. Ki, or energy, essence is a word that's used a lot, which is just like, it's all a little bit, to me, a little bit fuzzy, like how all those things are differentiated, like source energy, like energy, or like just energy being Genki and being energetic. The essence, like just, within you, like your essence and your expression of that source.
Would you, so how long did you live at Sogen-ji total?
I was there about 5 years.
Was it straight? Would you go home for a few months at a time?
I would go home. So, originally I thought I'd go for 3 months. I ended up staying close to a year, and then I went home. I think I did go home for I'm not remembering, but it was a month or two that first time. I think I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay there or not. For me, going to Sogen-ji, like I knew I wanted to be there and do that, but then I knew I wanted to like take that out into the world eventually. I didn't want to live like a monastic life indefinitely. I'd never thought of myself that way, or I didn't romanticize that or have any kind of, but at the same time being there, like there's always further to go. So I was drawn to continuing that process. But when I left and went home and I got like some temp work, I was living at my parents' house and feeling around, and I could just feel like, no, I want to get back to the training. Yeah. When I think Corey and I were in like a rocky place in our relationship. I needed some space from that, so I left. But I did. Then I came back, and then usually I would leave probably for a couple weeks in the summer, like August. There's no osashin. At least when I lived there, no osashin at Sogen-ji because it's very hot. So I'd like leave in August and visit family. Because like I said, my parents were sort of concerned. What are you doing there? You shaved your head. They gave you a new name. You keep going back. Who are these people? So kind of let them know. But then usually when I come home, they'd see, oh, you're doing really well.
You weren't all spacey and like,
yeah, I wasn't just no, I remember them saying actually like, oh, you're more like who you were as a child or something, which was positive. You know, they could see some of those layers sloughing off of, you know, what we all acquire through life.
So that was a third party objective sense of what was going on with you. What was your own internal feeling like? Because a lot of times when you're in the midst of a hardcore practice, you kind of have no objectivity. You're so locked into the schedule. At least this is my experience. You can tell me if you feel it differently. You kind of can't really see the changes in yourself with any sort of objectivity. And for me, it's always when I would leave, you know, or take a break from harder practice, and I'd be like, oh wow, you know, things do seem different. Like, did you have that kind of internal experience at all?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
What were you seeing in yourself?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why it is so important to have those breaks. So like I say, looking at Sogen-ji, and especially now, well, I'm not quite sure exactly, but I think more recently the Rōshi's like, no, you have to come and you stay for 3 years solid. That's his advice, or his, what he mandates to people. But I think it's like, wow, it's amazing to have the break. Yeah, I think when I'd have the break, I would see both how far I come and how far I'd have to go. You know, I could see, oh, I can feel like maybe some more restlessness or inner frustration or whatever. See how easily that returns when I'm not doing that schedule so in such a dedicated way. But then also being able to feel how I'm moving through the world feels different. How I am in a space with other people feels different. How I'm connecting to people, or, you know, what's it like to go visit my grandma? This feels different than it did before. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's like, how can I be with this person? Can I breathe in this space, you know, at the Olive Garden getting French fries with my grandma, or, you know, and when she's in her home and she's smoking and watching the nuns on TV, you know, can I be in it? Can I bring my practice here? So it was exciting to see that and see those changes. But also seeing that I wanted to keep going with the intense training too.
So you eventually you took Jukai, right?
Yeah.
Was that a deep, meaningful experience for you, or just kind of almost routine, just something you have to do to continue?
That did feel very meaningful to me. So again, I think we were there. I say we, it was me, Corey, and our good friend who got there right before me, Lisa, Diane. We did our Jukai together, and I think we'd been there a couple, 2 or 3 years before we got Jukai. Sometimes people ask to be given a name, get it earlier. Maybe the Rōshi gives the names earlier now, but we were there a while, so it felt like this real rite of passage. Like, okay, now you're no longer a freshman level, you know, you're sophomore now. And yeah, taking that name and having the ceremony. And then he says a little something when you get the name. And I remember what my name means. It means bright, pure. And then he says a little something about why he gave you that name. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but I just remember like feeling completely seen by him when he said what he said. And just like that, like unity with your teacher then, in that of being seen for that, you know, essential nature of what you are, and his guidance and nurturing of that, and like feeling so incredibly grateful to him for that and that experience. So the Jukai really was like a moment that encapsulated that for me.
Well, do you feel like your relationship with the Rōshi changed over the years? Did you feel closer to him? Were there rocky periods? I mean, or was it kind of just the same all the way through?
Yeah, I think it does change. I think when I first came, you know, he was really nice to me, as nice as he gets. I mean, just in Santan, I think he was kind of like excited. He was excited that, like I said, at this time, there was kind of a wave of new young people coming in. So I think he liked that. He liked that there's this new energy and this young energy, and that we were all really kind of sincerely trying to go for it in our own way. And so he kind of cheers you on, but he just meets you where you are always. So if I'm kind of in that young, new enthusiastic, okay, I'm going to do it energy, then he's giving that back. And then, as you go on there, maybe he gets more serious. But I was probably, more serious then too. And, but I think some people went through times where they felt like the Rōshi was being really tough on them. I didn't feel that exactly. I mean, I felt like he was tough on me and serious, but I think for the most part, I was really into my practice while I was there. So I think sometimes you can get hard on people to try to motivate them because they're like getting disenchanted. And I mean, on the one hand, like I said, I was there kind of wondering, how long am I going to be here? Because I don't want to always be here. So that was hanging in my mind for most of the time I was there. That was actually like just sort of leaving my mind right before I left. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So Corey got ordained, the full ordination. Was that something you were considering too?
Yeah, so Corey got ordained. At the time he got ordained, I was actually in the States. So there's a hospice Enso house, which was created that's connected to the monastery here on Whidbey Island. So, and for a long time, they would send a Sogen-ji person there every 6 months. Like that was their job assignment for 6 months. So you could be the guest housekeeper, the Tenzo or something at Sogen-ji, or you get the assignment to go to the States. And so anyway, I was working in the hospice there when Corey, and that was probably like we were talking about, like that competitive aspect of, well, he's ordained, and not to mention it just makes it feel more doable when someone that you're, we were there, came at the same time and everything, is making that decision. Yeah, it would flit in and out of my mind. I don't think I thought about it too seriously, except for, like I said, like soon before I left, I was thinking about ordaining. So I had that time at Enso House at the hospice, and Corey got ordained, and I came back and I had some time there. And I think that time at the hospice was another one of those times like we were talking about where you leave and then you have that perspective. And so having that time away and being in that environment, for some reason, like some ideas of what I thought I might do next with my life after Sogen-ji, I decided to like stop thinking about what might come next and just be there fully and be able to like look back and say, I never chose this. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, I didn't look for Zen. I didn't look for Buddhism. Like it came to me, like I can receive these things and trust them. And why am I at this monastery? I might not know exactly, but I can kind of surrender more into the experience of being here and trust that life is taking care of me and figuring out, the next thing will flow to me. I don't have to grasp out and wonder when it's going to happen or plan it so much. But, and so then I thought, well, if I'm in that state of mind with it, of being like fully dedicated to this, not thinking about the next thing, maybe I should ordain. But then I got pregnant instead. So that was actually the next thing that wanted to come to me.
Yeah. So I assume unplanned.
Well, oh yes, unplanned.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was I guess a huge right angle in the situation.
Exactly.
What is the rules on dating there? Are people allowed to date? I mean,
no, you're not supposed to be in a relationship there. And yet there are relationships happening that everyone kind of knows about, but they're undercover.
I think I read once like the Japanese are masters at not seeing, which that should not be seen.
Right. Like that kind of turning the other way, And I was going to say, to the extent that a relationship can happen there, you can't, when I say you have you're close to people there, you're doing this intense training together. Obviously, you're not like living with them or going on dates all the time, or, it's whatever it means to be in a relationship there is very different than what it is to be in a relationship out in the world.
Right. Fleeting and secretive.
little secret connection moments here and there, but it's not like the days in, days out of being in a relationship. Like,
so when you found out you were pregnant, was it clear, like, okay, our time is done here, or was there some thought of trying to make it work, or?
Right. Well, so when I found out I was pregnant, Corey had just left actually to do his 6-month stint at Enso House.
Okay.
So it was like, the day or two before he left that the conception occurred, and then he was gone. And then so several weeks later, and he's been gone for a while. And I think, okay, now I'm here. I'm going to really, dig in and train. I'm on my own. And, and then I found out I was pregnant. So I wasn't able to tell him right away, is what I'm saying. So for about 12 hours or whatever, waiting for the time change to happen where I could actually call him and tell him, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what his reaction would be, or, but then when I was able to call him and tell him, and he was like so affirming and like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, then I felt very settled with it. And I had to go tell Chi-san and the Rōshi. And I mean, you can't have a baby at Sogen-ji. That just doesn't, I wish they'd let us just stay. I mean, but you have to leave then. And the Rōshi was very, what do I say? I mean, he was very understanding, or kind of unmoved, I guess, when I told him. He just, oh, okay, next thing for you, now your karma has changed. He wasn't like, what? How could you do that in my monastery? You're not supposed to run around like that here. There was no reprimanding or anything, which Chi-san told me. I don't know if that's true entirely, but like, the Rōshi knows that, the psychological state of the mother really affects that little baby in utero. So he doesn't want to like put guilt or stress on you. So he's just, he knows that about the development of a human spirit. So I told him, and then probably a couple of weeks later, I left Sogen-ji, and actually like my goodbye tea with him too. It was very positive. It was like, you and Ichigen, Corey, you're very good training people, and you should keep training, and you should keep going with this, and find a way to keep going on Woodby Island, and Chi-san will help you with that. So I almost left with this feeling of like elation, because I had always wanted to be a mother. So like I said, I didn't really see myself monastic forever. So I kind of had this feeling like, can I have it all? Can I have like this intense training life that I love so dearly, and have a partner and a child? Like that would be the ultimate for me. But then logistically, once we left, I mean, how do you do that? We lived for a few weeks in a trailer in the field outside Enso House, the hospice. And we probably were trying to sit, and we were just trying to figure out our lives at that point. It was like, what are we going to do? And I think Chi-san did write the Sangha on Woodby Island and say, well, the Rōshi said, like, we should all help take care of these people and try to make it happen. But no one's going to like fund you while you have your baby. like where are you gonna have your baby, and who's gonna get the food and pay for the baby clothes or diapers or whatever? We had to make the separation from that then.
So did you guys go get just regular jobs, or like
so then we kind of thought about it, what we wanted to do. I don't know, we didn't know how we wanted to show up in the world anymore. Like, should we keep shaving our heads? Should we wear samugi still? Should we go by our dharma names? We were trying to figure that all out, and we didn't have anything. Like, we didn't have a fork or a spoon or a couch, so we ended up being able to rent a place not far from the monastery, and I worked in a cafe cooking, and Corey got a job doing carpentry on the island. We had some connections to have those jobs happen. I started seeing a midwife and had the baby at home, and that was rough. Those were rough times. That was a hard transition, because we both loved the training so dearly. And I mean, more so Corey, I think he would agree, had a harder time with the transition. not only is he's not the one like physically growing the baby in him. So it's still more theoretical. Like he'll say, I didn't really know there was a baby until she came out, you know, it's just sort of hard to grasp that.
I get it.
And because so in that case, I had sort of been the one saying, look, we can't live in this trailer. We got to go like get jobs and find a place to live and nest and have our baby. And when we told the Rōshi that we were moving out, when he came for an osashin to Whidbey Island, that's when he asked Corey to give back his robes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of just a symbolic thing. It doesn't mean, I mean, once you're ordained, I feel like you're ordained, but it's the symbolic thing of like, okay, now we kind of have to separate now. Mm-hmm. And so that was very difficult for him. Being an ordained person, separating is different than for me, since I never just did the Jukai, but not the full ordination. That's very different. So yeah. And then, like I said, just figuring out logistically, we need a bed, we need we need some pots and pans, right. Getting settled, preparing for the baby. It was emotional.
You're going through the town with your begging bowls. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Chanting sutras, but nobody understood. They weren't just giving us money. Yeah.
Okay, so now you guys have 3 girls, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So jumping ahead, way forward in the timeline. So I think from your email, you're a real estate agent. Is that correct?
I do some real estate.
Yeah.
It's not a huge part of my life, but I do. I got licensed several years ago, and I work with a dear friend and her daughter. It's a small brokerage, so I do. I do some of that. Yeah. Yeah.
So but you guys have kind of muggle jobs, so to speak. Well, I mean, maybe Corey still is a little bit.
Corey's figured he's figured out a way to blend it all.
Right.
And I have supported him 100% along the way. I'm behind the scenes there with his work for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's your perspective? I mean, what role does practice play in your life now? I know for myself, I was pretty serious about Zen for a long time.
Yeah.
But from the point I had my first kid, until I think the oldest one was about 5 or 6. I mean, I did not sit that often. I mean, I did a little bit, but it's it's as anyone who's had young kids know, it's more than a full-time job, and then you have a job, and your kids are older now. I mean, have you been able to settle back into a practice routine? Do you guys sit? Do you go to Whidbey Island? What's your relationship to Zen now?
Well, yeah. So my youngest is 6. So we have a bit of span here. So yeah, my oldest is 15. So the last time I did an osashin was when I was pregnant with her. So coming up on 16 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. It doesn't feel like it. But and then like when she was young, we tried to have like a family zazenkai day at Tahoma, where we go and families would come and we'd lead a little sitting there and do some things with the kids. We did that for a little bit. But yeah, as far as regular practice for me, it's true. I think, when I first had Rose and onward, really for all my kids, I can get like very focused. So I just felt like they are my osashin now, There's some people in our Sangha that have had younger kids, and then they take turns taking care of the kids while one of them does osashin and things like that. And people would always say to Corey and I, why don't you guys do that? But it never quite made sense for us. Like I wanted to, if Zen is sort of like do it completely, like, okay, now I'm doing this completely. Like to do an osashin would feel like taking a vacation in the middle of Rohatsu or something. Like we'll go to Hawaii for a couple of days and do yoga and then come back to Rohatsu. Like my kids are my Rohatsu for better or for worse, because I think it is good to balance things. And as they get older, I see that more and feel that more. But at the time of being a new mom, I just was like, okay, I'm going to just be with my baby all the time. I'm going to hold her. I'm going to nurse her. I'm going to home birth her. I'm going to when she has to pee, I hold her over a toilet. I kid you not, elimination, communication, you like tune in with your baby, this becoming one with this other being, it's incredible. Sleeping with them, so it's just like round the clock. So that was the practice, right? And I really felt that way about it. And I felt like I could continue deepening through this, it was just like so much more in action, you know, doing it in action with the kids. And then now, yeah, I know I haven't been to sit at Tahoma or in the Zendo there for quite a while. Every now and then in years past, like maybe go to a Zazenkai or go if the Rōshi would come for Osashin, go to a talk there. But even that, it's been a long time since I've done that. So it's mostly just trying to find sometimes on my own when I can, connect more directly with that inner process, which is still hard to do because I also homeschool my kids. So
yeah, we do too now. So
oh, you do? Oh, cool.
Yeah, we started, ironically enough, right before COVID hit. We made the decision to do it.
Oh, interesting.
We must have felt something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it was just like we were like, it was just very clear that we needed to homeschool. And then like 2 months later, COVID hit, and you know, it was really strange how it rolled out. But yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's so great. But it is hard to find that time. But I also like I really didn't want my kids growing up with a feeling like I was always taking time away from them for my spiritual practice. Like I didn't want that to be a place of building resentment or feeling like mom's leaving me for that weird thing again. For a variety of reasons. I mean, if anything, I want them to have like a positive association with meditation and spiritual practice and be able to come to it in their own way if they ever desire to, and not have to get over this like hump of abandonment locked up with spiritual practice. So yeah, so in that way, I just wanted to be really dedicated to them. And then now they see us do so much in the midst of everything. Like sometimes, I mean, with Corey's classes, he teaches, and it's a lot of standing meditation. So, I mean, you can actually do that while watching a Disney movie where there's toys spread all over the floor. we try to make it easy to do too for ourselves, because I can definitely get into a mindset where it's like, well, I need to take care of everything, and then I'll give myself permission to sit once, the laundry, the dishes, you know, I've got to get this kid to this activity, and then I'll squeeze in a few minutes. So a few minutes is better than nothing, and I'm trying to just do it more, right? Just
do you feel any? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you feel any connection to the qigong practices at all?
Yeah.
You know, interesting. You know, my wife, you know, she's incredibly supportive of my practice. I mean, I couldn't be luckier, but she hates Zazen. You know, I mean, she thinks it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Like for her, you know. Right. But she really likes the qigong and the energy work and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Do you and your kids join Corey with that? What is your guys' relationship to it? Yeah,
I do try to join the kids. Not really, but yeah, like for example, right now Corey's leading this intensive. So so it's a month-long time where the people in his practice group just are, besides the regular classes he has going, they just dedicate to practicing more often together in these, he probably talked about it, in these Facebook rooms, like it's kind of like an open video call. You can say, I'm getting on to sit or stand, and that message goes out to the group, and then anyone in the group from all over the world can join in, and you're practicing together. So I've been trying to join in with those rooms, not every day this month, but more often than I normally would. So I do sometimes I sit, sometimes I stand or do a qigong posture. I really like the non-directed body movement that he leads, that I learned. Corey introduced me to that back at Sogen-ji. So that's a really beautiful practice too. And it's like, I'm just always up for doing that, because you just stand there and then let what is happen, and it's great.
Yeah, it's probably not the same thing at all, but I used to be, I guess still am, like really into the Grateful Dead. You know, they were kind of my religion for a long time, so to speak. Yeah. And you know, there gets moments in the concert where you're not dancing, you're being danced. And I'm not saying this like metaphorically. I mean, like literally, you have no agency over your body. You're completely a marionette, you know. And I've always wondered, is that kind of what the non-directed movement that you guys do is? Is it kind of that similar vibe, or?
Yeah, I'd say But since you don't have that amazing concert blasting at you, you know,
Right.
you're just like tuning into that.
But is it the same type of thing where it's not you, you know, there's some,
Right.
you know, it's,
Yeah, I
know,
would say you stand there until something else is moving you. And if that doesn't happen, then you're just standing there. And it can be like really subtle, or depending, like if I go into a session like that and I'm like really locked up, like my neck has been in pain and I can't get it to loosen up any other way. But if I just stand there and let it, I call it like an unwinding. Your body starts to do these weird things you don't want it to do. You don't want it to go there, but it, and it unwinds and releases that. But I also love to dance, and I'll go to ecstatic dance here on the island. I haven't gone now with the pandemic, but they just started up again. But I think it's the same idea of what you're talking about, like to be danced, and that has incredible live music and drumming, and you just like you get into kind of like a trance state.
Yeah, it really is.
That, right? Like it's this old, must be in our DNA, just tribal, like basic, primal. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're about an hour and 15 minutes into it. Do you want to wrap up here, or?
Sure, that sounds good. That sounds good. For my schedule, I forgot I was supposed to tell you at the beginning. I have about an hour, so that's good.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I so much appreciate the time.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you, Barry.
Okay.
Hope to meet you sometime and come like river rafting or something.
Yeah, you guys have an open invitation to come down river rafting anytime.
Okay, we might take you up on that.
It's a legitimate offer, so hopefully.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
bye.